And welcome back to Hannity. Still ahead tonight, my interview with former Vice President Dick Cheney on Benghazi and more. But first, as the IRS scandal targeting conservatives continues to unravel, the pressing question remains, what political implications will all this have? Now, earlier, Fox learned that the House Ways and Means Committee will hold a hearing on Friday about this very matter. And joining me now with reaction is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Senator, your reaction?
Well, you know, tomorrow morning I'll introduce a resolution that says, why don't we fire the IRS agents that abuse their power to target people for their political activities? President says he's going to do something if they're guilty. Well, it sounds like there's already been an investigation and no one's been fired. I'm afraid he's going to do about as much as he did after Benghazi. The people who made the decisions not to provide security were transferred temporarily, and they still work for the State Department. No one was fired. So it's a bit of faux outrage, and I wonder, what is the president going to do? So we are going to demand tomorrow in a Senate resolution that says to the president, Mr. President, if someone did this for political reasons, targeted groups, they should be fired.
Well, they did do it. I mean, that's the point. It's pretty obvious. They've admitted they did it, and they came clean about it. I mean, I guess the scariest part of all this, Senator, and look, these are words you use all the time. Tea Party, patriot, you want to make America a better place to live. If you're critical of how the government is being run, the country's being run, you talk about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I'm surprised you weren't investigated for that matter.
Well, yeah, that's a pretty big group of people, those who have been critical of the government. You know, when I think of this thing, I think of what Lincoln said. He says, you know, nearly any man can be tested and maybe meet up to adversity, but if you really want to test a man, give him power. I think in that sense, the president's failing that test of power because he has extraordinary power and he's supposed to be able to be wise enough to restrain himself. But he's using the power of government to investigate his enemies. He's tapping the phones of the press. And it turns out last year he signed legislation that allows him to detain an American without a trial and send them to Guantanamo Bay. This sounds like a president somewhat drunk on power, not cautious about how he uses power. All right,
so we got the IRS scandal. We've got the phone tapping scandal that we're getting into tonight. And then, of course, Benghazi. I noticed that you challenged Hillary Clinton to a debate on that very issue. What's the status of that? Have you heard from her?
I haven't heard back yet. But, you know, Ambassador Pickering did an investigation, and he said, well, the decisions happened well below the secretary. That's precisely my point. The fact that Hillary Clinton was not engaged when they called for help, when they asked for more security from Libya, it went to her underlings, and she's going to let them take the fall. Absolutely, that should have risen to the secretary, and that's precisely her mistake and why she should be held accountable, because it is her job to determine what information gets to her. And the fact that the plea for help, the plea for more security, the plea from Colonel Wood, all of these things came to her underlings, and she says, oh, I'm not responsible. Absolutely, she's responsible for not listening and telling her undersecretaries to give her the information.
A lot of press was made about your comment that Obama is working with anti-American globalists plotting against our Constitution. Your friends over at the Washington Post, all the liberals over there, I'm sure would love to hear your response.
Well, you know, the one thing they can't get away from is there is a UN small arms treaty. We're not making it up. President Obama has sounded and acted in the UN as if he's supportive. It is moving forward, and we are trying to drum up support and publicity for people to say, look, we do not want to have Americans have to obey rules of the United Nations. It goes against our sovereignty. It goes against our Constitution. And, you know, they can caterwaul all they want, but I'm going to continue to keep heating it up for them because they need to know that we're going to obey rules passed by Congress, but not rules passed by some international body that has no binding on the American people.
All right. I hear you going to Iowa. Should I read anything into you giving big speeches in Iowa and New Hampshire?
I guess it's just a coincidence, Sean. I don't know why. I keep looking up, and Iowa's on my schedule, New Hampshire's on my schedule, South Carolina.
Really? Just now we got all three of them? I only saw two. Can I interpret that? Can I interpret that as you are considering a run for the presidency and that you'd be open to it?
I want the party to be bigger. I want to be part of the national team that grows the GOP, and that means going to a lot of these primary states. What happens beyond that, I don't know. But I will tell you, until we start reaching out to African Americans, to Hispanics, to Asian Americans, and saying we are the party of inclusion, and we are the party that will help you to get to work your way up the socioeconomic ladder, when we convince people in a bigger, broader area, I think we'll begin to win again.
All right, Senator, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. And